Good morning on this Sunday, July 9th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. I'm Deidre Dukes in for Lori Geary. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is reportedly on the outs with the House Freedom Caucus. Atlanta city leaders denounced recent targeted attacks against Atlanta PD by opponents of the future Public Safety Training Center. And remembering Marvin Arrington Sr., the former Fulton County Superior Court judge and Atlanta City Council president, passed away this week at the age of 82. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we begin with news that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who represents Georgia's 14th district, was voted out of the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus. Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, who serves as a board member of the Freedom Caucus, confirmed on Thursday that the action was taken last month. Now, the Congresswoman's ouster was first reported by Politico, and the action by the group reportedly came just days after Greene got into a verbal fight with Congresswoman Boebert, who is also a Freedom Caucus member, reportedly calling her the B word on the House floor. Phil, it's the first time the Conservative Caucus has booted out one of its own.
It is, but often this happens in both parties' caucuses over the years. I served in the U.S. Senate as a staffer in the 80s, and people were shifting in and out of caucuses. I will say this, I think we would all agree, when you use a vulgarity against a fellow member on the floor, that's wrong and should be condemned. So let's get that out of the way. But I don't think in the end this is going to matter much. Marjorie Taylor Greene is an ally with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. That's always good when you're allied with the Speaker of the House when it comes to legislation. And the Freedom Caucus, they have their ups and downs with the Speaker, but they have to work with it. I will say this, the Democrats recently had a flap where Congressman David Scott, who I would consider a centrist Democrat, he was forced out of the Blue Dog Caucus by the more left-wing members. So it happens in both parties.
Still, Janelle, you have to wonder what impact this is going to have on Capitol Hill. She is popular back home.
Yeah. She is, and I think I want to see what Marjorie's going to do, right? Because this could be an opportunity for her to kind of move out of that pigeonholed space. A lot of people said that she pigeonholed herself into this ultra right-leaning area or space in politics that may impact her negatively if she wanted to run for something outside of her district. So this could be something that she can parlay into a future run in an area that's more open to diverse thought. Because at the end of it all, I know we're saying that it's about what she said as it relates to that comment, but this started when she sided with Speaker McCarthy. And so that's when people started kind of looking at her as if she's been a traitor to the far right side of the party. So I'm interested to see how she parlays this, because I think it's a good time to have a conversation about whether we are allowing diversity of thought.
Now, Melita and Theron, of course, she's a great supporter of President Trump, former President Trump. You'll often see her at his campaign rallies. Could this be something that the Democrats can play off of and take advantage of?
Perhaps, but I think it's going to be more interesting to see how it works within the Republican caucus, because Speaker McCarthy had elevated her as a part of his leadership whip team. She had been whipping the votes of this very caucus that's now thrown her out. But it is interesting to see. She's had some pretty bad behaviors, even worse than calling the Congresswoman that word. And by drawing a line for what is appropriate behavior, the Freedom Caucus has actually demonstrated more spine than the remainder of the Republican caucus. So that's a very interesting thing. I mean, that's about the only good thing I can say about them, but they did show some spine about drawing a line in the sand about behavior.
And Theron?
You know, the Congresswoman has been unhinged and pretty much doing whatever she wants to do for a while. I mean, if you just look at her behavior, I mean, she's been extremely extreme when it comes to some of the Republican policies. This is not the first time she's yelled at someone on the floor. You may remember during the whole circus when we saw Speaker McCarthy trying to become the speaker, she was yelling then. But, you know, there was an article that came out this week that said that her district somewhat still support her, right? And so, you know, she even commented, I'm all about fighting for the Northwest Georgia, you know, residents that I represent. And so we'll have to wait and see how it sort of pans out. But ultimately, I think it's back to Melita's point. Can she be an effective member of Congress? Can she bring money to the district? Is she voting in a way that benefits her constituents? Is she partnering with her other caucus members to utilize the support to really make sure that her district understands what she's doing? So all those things is what the fundamentals are needed when you're a member of Congress.
I mean, I feel like you don't have to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene and everything that she says, but I feel like for some reason when Democrats become extreme, they're passionate. When Republicans are extreme, we're extreme, right? It's like it becomes a conversation around what's passionate. If she's fighting for something she really believes in, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene ever stepped outside of what she believed in. And she really believed and felt like a lot of the initiatives she was pushing is stuff that she should be pushing.
Yeah.
But when Democrats do it, it's passion. And I think we got to talk about that.
I can't let you do that. There's no Democrat that has called another woman the B word on the floor. Show me.
Okay,
I didn't cut you off. So that hasn't happened. So I'm not going to let you and Phil sit up here with a straight face and act like this is a problem in the Democratic Party.
That's not what I said.
This woman has shown that she's the extreme of the extreme. You never had a member of Congress like her before. So it's left up to you all, not us, to figure out how you're going to deal with
There
her.
are many conflicts that you don't get on the floor.
I'd like Melita to weigh in.
You're not holier than thou in your party.
Well, I think what we're going to see is we are going to see her face some serious Republican opposition in the primary when she seeks re-election. And I think that opposition will have some serious money behind it. And it will be very interesting to see whether the people of the district continue to wish to be represented by someone who's an embarrassment to Georgia.
I have to be clear. I wasn't saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene should get a pass for saying the B word. That's not what I was talking about. You said she's been unhinged in the past, so I'm assuming that you're referring to actions prior to that moment.
You don't think the comments that she's made about this country and about people basically embracing and congratulating people?
I started by saying that you can disagree.
No,
I started by saying that, right? You can disagree with it. That doesn't mean that she wasn't passionate about it. It doesn't mean she didn't believe in it.
You're talking to someone who's worked for 2 congressmen, right?
Okay.
All right. I know the roles and responsibilities of a congressman.
Okay.
What she's doing, her behavior, is not the role of one of the most extreme positions. No, it's about democracy. It's about this country and where we are.
Well, we're in a republic.
But you all are all about endorsing this type of behavior.
That's not
and
what
for
I'm
you to
saying.
come onto this show and say that
ridiculous.
Democrats...
We're not
That is
endorsing
ridiculous.
Y'all said that
That's not what I
Democrats,
said.
you said when Democrats do it, we say it's passionate.
Right.
You say it happens in both parties.
When Democrats act unhinged, like AOC,
but we're
it's
not.
passionate.
AOC is nowhere near what she's doing.
To you,
Janelle.
because you agree with her.
No, she's not.
I could call her unhinged. How about that?
Not
Certain decorum to congressional behavior, which is what Theron is talking about.
We all agree on the decorum.
No one's fighting
we
that.
all agree on the decorum.
Right.
She has never respected that decorum from the moment she got there. She has not respected the respect her constituents gave her by sending her there with her behavior.
How about the Democrats that attacked Supreme Court Justice nominee Kavanaugh? The most vicious things were said,
They
rumors,
asked
innuendo.
him-
I don't want to hear lectures from the Democrats
Not at
about
all.
decorum.
You know what y'all not doing right now? Y'all are not
Especially-
doing decorum.
No,
You see how calmly I'm sitting here?
Oh,
This is
Theron,
called
please.
decorum, right?
Please,
You
no,
guys
I
are
think
just
we must
riled
have
up.
decorum
You guys
on
are
the
just
Georgia
riled up
gang
about
set.
supporting
We
this
must.
woman who's extreme.
Theron,
And this
you
is
were
a
riled
lively
up
debate.
last week about
Yeah,
affirmative
'cause I'm
action.
all
so
about
here's the thing. We're not talking about decorum. We want to talk about decorum. Then where was your outrage when Pelosi tore up the speech? Now, let's be clear. There's been actions that have happened on the Democrat side that's been outside of decorum for several times and over again. And no one seems to say anything on the Democrat side. So don't lecture me on decorum when I know that we are operating within
I'm
passion.
going to let you respond, Theron, and then we're going to move on to
It's
another
fine,
topic.
Deidre.
Or we could be here
You come into
for
a
about
fiery
the next 30 minutes.
No, I think, look, this is the thing I try to say. People want us to come on this show every week and talk about the issues, all right? Your and Phil's pivot always for the last 2 years has been, but the Democrats do it. I'm saying to you, right now, we're talking about a Republican member. Right. If a Democratic member did this, then guess what? Me and Melita, no, let me finish. Don't cut me
We're going to
off.
let Theron have the last word on this. We're going to let Theron have the last word.
I think
Don't let him filibuster.
What you are witnessing today to our audience is the problem with the Republican Party.
No.
These are people
That is absurd.
who literally are refusing to publicly condone this woman.
We condemned her.
Okay, I didn't hear you say it right now.
Okay,
Say it
we're
again.
going to
I said
move
what's wrong.
on. We can
No,
continue this
say
debate
I
for the next
condemn.
20
You must
minutes.
be
I'm
deaf.
going to throw the flag out.
must
We're going to
be
move
deaf.
on at this point. You all can
I'm not
discuss
deaf.
this
I hear
during
you
the
every
break.
day. This
We're going to move on
deaf.
to our other big story this week, and that is the Atlanta Police Department holding a news conference Wednesday to denounce targeted attacks that occurred against the police force that occurred over the 4th of July weekend. Now, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and APD Chief Darren Shearbaum detailed the extensive damage. 8 police motorcycles destroyed on July 1st at the department's Police Academy and Special Ops Center. Windows broken out of several police vehicles at the precinct in charge of protecting the Atlanta Beltline. And then there were at least 3 attacks on contractors associated with the project at their private residences where We were told a vehicle and home were damaged. Now, the mayor said all these acts of violence carried out by those opposed to the planned public safety training center, calling them vengeful wingnuts with nothing to lose, saying they will not tolerate, they being the city, those who are determined to commit criminal acts and will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. Now, Melita, I'd like to start with you. The latest violent acts come as opponents of the project they've dubbed Cop City are trying to collect signatures to get issues on the ballot. Wouldn't you expect that would hurt their cause?
It could very well hurt their cause, but what you have to understand is, as the mayor said, the people who committed this violence are wingnuts with nothing to lose. Those who are opposed to the police training facility bring a lot of different perspectives. So they're over here on the far left fringe, if you will, but there are a lot of people with objections to the police training facility who fill the rest of that spectrum, and it's unfair to try and lump them all together. So I think that the people who are collecting the signatures will continue, but you can't say that everybody who's collecting signatures is willing to damage a police motorcycle or break a police car window. There's a very different subset that's responsible for this violence, which all of us condemn.
So, Phil, the mayor did say during the news conference that they have reached out to the peaceful protesters, saying that this violent faction is actually infiltrating with the peaceful protesters and they're breaking off when they commit their crimes. And yet, critics will say we're not hearing enough from the folks who are the good guys, you could say, who really are pushing and have opposition to this project.
Well, I go along with what you're saying. You've formed that there's two groups there, the far left, the extremists that are engaging in violence, and then people who are sincere who oppose the police training facility. I think the mayor, I'm going to defend the mayor and Chief Darren Scheerbaum. I think they've made it clear that, yes, you can peacefully protest, you can do a petition if you want to, but they sounded like me, the way they condemned the extremists, and it's about time we crack down and crack down hard. We had other arrests the other day of these extremists, and so I think, and also the contractors have been threatened by these extremists, which is outrageous. So I think we need to crack down and crack down hard, and so I commend the mayor and the chief.
All right. Well, coming up next, Fulton County's Republican Party is suing over the rejection of their nominee to the County Elections Board. They want the court to force Fulton County commissioners to appoint a controversial figure. Our panelists weigh in when we come back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Now, the Fulton County Republican Party in Fulton County filed a lawsuit last week asking a judge to order the County Board of Commissioners to appoint Jason Frazier to the County Board of Elections. That has been met with some stiff reaction, and that lawsuit, Phil, the lawsuit calls the commissioner's rejection of Frazier's nomination a cynical act of partnership.
Well, I would agree with that. What's traditionally done is the Democrats have two on the Fulton County Elections Board, and the Republicans have two members on that same board. And the law says they shall be appointed. And so what kills me about Jason Frazier, the Republican that Democrats keep rejecting, they don't like the fact that he questions elections. He actually found thousands of names that were misplaced, and the board agreed that that was great that he found it and it was corrected. So they're attacking. He should be thanked rather than being attacked.
Now, Theron, of course, the commissioners have approved or appointed other Republicans to the board, but they have drawn a firm line in the sand when it comes to Frazier.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, look, you've had some very intense, some very passionate Republicans to be a part of this board in the past. They've been outspoken. You know, we remember that this is the same board who would do recounts when it came to elections and mayoral elections. Will everybody protest? But I think, you know, Marvin Arrington Jr. said it best. It's about putting people on this board who are acceptable, that's going to basically bring in a fair and proper perspective to our election system. And so this gentleman has a history of spending his personal time spreading conspiracy theories. Now, he does provide information. A lot of information is not factual. Some of it may have some merit, but ultimately I think these commissioners are saying, look, at a time where Fulton County is going in the right direction, the elections are doing well. And by the way, we never mentioned that the two women who basically were targeted by Republicans for basically saying that they tampered with evidence, they were basically let off their case. Those charges were dismissed. So I think that the county is moving in the right direction. And this gentleman, if you can't get the support of the county commission, then you just can't serve on this voting board.
Yeah, and Janelle, the group that brought the lawsuit is saying that Frazier is being punished for trying to clean up voter rolls.
Okay, so there's times when I follow issues and I do it privately. I don't tell anyone. I'm just following it, and I've been following this. And I love my county party people. I feel like the best part of the state party are the people who serve in the counties, right? They give their time and their energy, and I understand their passion behind this. Personally, I think it may be a waste of time to pursue a lawsuit when it comes to this. The reason why is because you can simply just roll in another person, just give them another name of another person who can do the same duties. When it comes to this gentleman, he is very zealous when it comes to finding these things. I mean, a good friend of mine who's a black woman who happens to be a Republican was listed as someone who needed to be removed from the voter rolls because she didn't put the NW for Northwest on the end of her address. And this is something that came up during this. And I thought that was a little bit extreme, a little bizarre. But at the end of it all, I understand the intentions. And so what I'm thinking is that maybe he was a little too zealous for this group. And so maybe we should find a Republican that is not as zealous about that, but still have him do what he's doing because it's necessary to clean up our voting rolls.
Melita, really this should come as no surprise, I would expect.
No, and he challenged something like 10,000 voter registrations. And as it turned out, it's things like the Northwest on the end of a name, of a street name. It's college dorms, it's newly constructed apartments, it's mixed use developments. And that takes time of voter elections workers to verify, to process. And so somebody who has run them through this process needlessly, to put him overseeing them is an insult to all the hard work of the people in that office, and the Fulton County Commission is doing the right thing.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in coming months. Now we want to move on to another topic. The Atlanta City School District made headlines this 4th of July week announcing it was looking for a firm to launch a national search for a new school superintendent. Now this comes after the board announced last month that Superintendent Lisa Herring's contract would not be extended when her contract ends next June. And Theron, the board's actions came as a surprise to many, including Dr. Herring. What happened?
Well, you know, if you really look at the roles and responsibilities of these board members, they have to sort of renew contracts of the superintendent. So this is not the first time that we've seen this board not renew the contract. So Dr. Herring wasn't fired. They just notified her that they were not going to renew her contract. But let's talk about the things that she did. You know, she took over the school system in COVID, right? And then she definitely, you know, did as best she could to try to reopen these schools. She put in mental health classes for a lot of these kids who needed that mental health assessments, you know, going from virtual learning, coming back. The 84% graduation rate was the highest it's been at APS. I think it's the state average is 84%. And also she has a good working relationship with this mayor, Mayor Dickens, and supporting him in the year of the youth. And then also if you really look at what she's done with the corporate community, a lot of corporate sponsors who've sort of come back to APS have been supporting her. So ultimately I think that she's going to finish out this term, but they do have to start the search and try to find the next man or woman to lead the school system.
And that is one point that stood out for me, is that she did take on the district during COVID, and from the reviews that we had during that period, she did a great job. So Phil, what would you say happened?
I'm going to agree with your points. I think she should have been extended. That was a tough time, as we all know, during the COVID period. I think one of the problems, and it happens a lot, is when you have tension between the school board and then the superintendent. And bear in mind, it got political, as it usually does, because you got 5 of those school board members up for election. And you had district issues. You know, the superintendent wants to close a school. Oh, no, not in my neighborhood. But I do agree with Theron. I think she did a good job. She should have been given more time. And I think the school board made a mistake.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Well, coming up, the community mourns the passing of one of Atlanta's greatest political and legal figures, former Fulton County Superior Judge Marvin S. Arrington Sr. We reflect on his life and legacy when we return.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Retired Fulton County Superior Court Judge and former City of Atlanta Council President Marvin S. Arrington Sr. has died at the age of 82. Arrington Sr. died peacefully at his home on Wednesday, surrounded by loved ones, remembered as an influential leader and a pillar of the community. and Theron, you knew the family well.
Yeah, I got a chance to go over and visit with Michelle, Marvin Arrington Sr.'s daughter, sort of exchange text messages with Marvin Arrington Jr. And when I spent this time with Michelle, and I think she would be okay with me saying this, is that she actually let me get into his home and toured the home. And what you saw is what I already knew. And I watched the movie Bowlegs. I actually made it a winner on this show a few months ago. But Marvin Arrington Sr. loved Atlanta. Good Clark College graduate who ran for office and didn't always win, but always stood for what he believed in, was all about bringing this city together. And he went on to have a very, very respectable law career and became a very respectable judge, and really pushed back on a lot of politicians where he felt that he needed to speak up. And so his voice is going to be missed, but I definitely want to extend my condolences to the family, and I think we should all read his books. He's got a lot of good opinions out there over the years, and he was definitely a really good council member when he was there.
Yeah, Melita, he really made a great impact.
He did, and I thought it was very nice that they mentioned in one of the tributes to him that it was appropriate for the City Council chamber to be named for him because he so enjoyed the lively discussions which took place there. And I thought one of the nicest tributes came from Reverend Gerald Durley, who had known him since 1962, and I'm going to quote him because he said, "He never sold us out behind closed doors. Marvin was transparent, honest, and open. You knew where he stood on every issue. We always knew we could trust Marvin. You couldn't buy him off." And I thought that was an amazing tribute from someone who knew him so well.
Yeah, and Phil, to Melita's point, he was known as a man who was quick to speak his mind, but also open to debate.
Well, yeah, as somebody who loves debate and speaks his mind, I liked Marvin Arrington, and we did have some fun debates over the years. I think that's a good quote. You know where he stood, whether you liked it or not. I had problems with some of his judicial rulings in recent years, but yeah, he did have a good record.
Yeah, and Janelle's truly a great loss.
Yeah, you know, I obviously, you know, there's some ideological differences that we may have had, but I will say that overall, anybody who puts themselves out there for the sake of people and want to serve the people, I think that's to be commended, right? I mean, you put yourself on the line, you put your reputation on the line, and I respect that. And so all the things I've heard about, I hadn't had a chance of meeting him. I do know his son, obviously, Commissioner Arrington, but I want to make sure we put that forward, is that regardless of what side of the aisle you stand on, the fact that he decided to put himself out there and serve the people is commendable.
And I would expect we'll continue to see tributes in coming days as we mourn his passing, and condolences to the family. Coming up, winners and losers next.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Time for our winners and losers, and after this debate we had today, you cannot pick each other as losers. I'm saying that right now. Let's get that out there. Melita, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Well, my winner of the week is President and Ms. Jimmy Carter, because on Friday, 7/7, they celebrated their 77th wedding anniversary quietly in Plains, becoming the longest married presidential couple in United States history, and what a life of service they've lived. I also want to express my sincere condolences to the family of my former neighbor, the legendary PR genius Bob Cohn of the firm Cohn & Wolfe that helped build some of Atlanta's biggest brands, and he also was a huge proponent of the Olympics, and he lived quite a life. And he also took the photograph that's trotted out every year at Sine Die of Denmark Groover in 1964 leaning over to try and stop the clock on the legislative session. My other loser would be former Atlanta attorney Lynn Wood, who gave up his law license after a tumultuous few years of defending President Trump.
All right, Phil.
Bob Cohn was a good winner, and I would second the motion on that one. Got a loser, our Fulton County DA, Fonnie Willis, and the problem is those criminal cases, thousands of them, keep piling up as a backlog. It's not good. If she's going to haul in President Trump and all these people for her investigation, that's going to further create a backlog. She's asking the Superior Court judges to not hold court. That's terrible. We need to continue with the system, and I would say that talking about lawyers, the lawyers are going to be the winners on the water wars. We've been talking about this on the show for, I think, 15 years now. We're still negotiating with Florida on water rights, etc. And so the state is going to have to do another $5 million to fight Florida, and the lawyers are going to win.
there, your winners and losers?
Definitely, again, want to make Marvin Arrington Sr. a winner and thank him and his family for a life of service, and he will definitely be missed. Also, we lost Judge Stephanie Davis, who was an Atlanta municipal judge in the city of Atlanta for a while, so definitely want to send my condolences to her. And to echo what Melita said about Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, wish them a 77th wedding anniversary. I actually did a piece in Georgia Trend called "A Man of the People" with Jimmy Carter, so I encourage people to go to Georgia Trend to read that. And then, of course, my loser is going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, you just heard us have a robust conversation about how she's my loser, and I think that people really need to pay more attention to what she's doing and call her out on it.
All right, winners and losers for you.
So my winner is the state of Georgia for being named as the top state for early voting. This has been a huge discussion for a number of years, and I'm glad hopefully this has set the record straight that we do not have voter suppression. We have what we call early voting, which allows people to vote early so that they don't have to worry about waiting in long lines. So that's awesome. And then I also want to make Mayor Dickens my winner because I like how he's addressing crime. In his last, in the last press conference, he made a statement where he said, when he was talking about Antifa, he said criminals are hiding in the middle of peaceful protests, and sometimes they are doing their own acts of violence. And I think it's good to call out Antifa and do the right thing. So congratulations, Mayor Dickens. I'm happy that you were able to do that.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.